Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for coming today. I am so excited to be able to share this moment with you as we have a great session today with our corporate sponsor, STQRY. STQRY came to us last year as a sponsor for conference, and they are returning, or have returned, I should say, for this year's conference. So we're really, really excited. Genevieve, Maka, and Julia are my girls. I really appreciate them and have really grown to love working with them. As you know, STQRY last year, we rolled out our conference app that's year round, and we're still tweaking a few things before we push it out completely because I don't want you guys yelling at me for things that don't work. I don't have time for that. But I really appreciate you guys. Today's session is the 2020 impact on museums and the future of the digital experience. I am Vidette Coleman Robinson. For those of you who do not know me, I'm the Executive Director of the Association of African American Museums. We just turned 43 last month, so we're really excited about that. And we support all of the African American museums or African focused museums or African museums in the country and internationally. So thank you for being on the call. And then for people like Robert who are not at an African American museum, I know he loves me for always putting him on the spot, but he is not at an African American museum, but he is at a Native American museum. And we also support any museum that wants to learn how to build their museum from the ground up, have more diversity and inclusion, and all of those things that we need to make this world a better place. So without further ado, I'm going to pass my mic over to Genevieve to take off and do some introductions and start the show. Thank you, Genevieve.
All right, thank you so much for that. And thank you everyone so much for joining. I'm just going to share my screen here. All right, so again, this is the 2020 impact on museums and the future of digital experiences. The focus of this presentation is going to be museums are reopening. A lot of things that we've been seeing over the course of the year and the beginning of COVID was, how do I launch a digital experience? How do I create content? What bandwidth do you need? What budget do you need? And with all of that said, now we're starting to see people reopening, and we've been talking to a lot of museums associations, and a lot of them have been saying, our members are now saying, oh, maybe we don't need an digital experience. Maybe we don't really need that yet. Maybe we can just kind of wait for the pandemic to be over, or we want to launch one, but we really still don't know how to go about it, or we're reopening and how can we now incorporate these digital experiences into us reopening. So I'm going to, next slide, just let my team members here introduce themselves, and then we'll dive into a little bit about STQRY and then dive into the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for being here and for your time. My name is Macarena Pizarro. I'm originally from Chile, and I have a background in visual arts and also in museum studies at Harvard Extension School. Have been involved in art education, exhibition, and curation and museums management through the years. I want to say the key to my work in the field has been understanding visitors as a fundamental component of museums and develop innovative ways to improve visitor experience.
I'm Julia Zungri. I'm located actually in Toronto, so in Ontario, Canada. I received my master's in history, which was very research-based. So I wanted to explore alternative ways to reach a wider range of audiences, which led me to the museum studies program at the University of Toronto. And this really helped me gain practical experience in exhibitions and delivering programs and writing for a variety of platforms for different audiences. And throughout this time, I've always tried to focus on and am most passionate about creating meaningful and inspiring visitor experiences, particularly when interpreting difficult histories. And I've become increasingly more interested in how this can be done through digital media.
Okay, so as Vidette already said, my name is Genevieve Hauk. I am the Marketing and Communications Manager at STQRY, but please don't let that fool you. I am a museum buff all day long. I have my bachelor's in studio art and communication, and I actually have my master's in arts management and administration from Bocconi University in Milan, Italy. So my focus in museums was primarily more in that European sector, but at the same time, I did work in museums in the US. I'm always open to discussing how to market digital experiences. The reason I actually came to STQRY is when I brought my master's back to the US and the States, I was looking for an innovative company, and I really knew that digital experiences was the future of museum education and learning, but also touring and accessibility. So that's kind of how I got into talking to STQRY and sent them my resume without a job opening, and just kind of got in, and they were really interested in talking. And now I help manage some of the museum clients as well. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about STQRY here. I, again, don't want this to be a sales pitch. This is really more of an informative session. So at STQRY, we have 4 different products. We have apps, we have Guide, we have Fleet, and we have Collect. Collect, just starting from kind of the bottom up, is an archival and management software that you can use to manage your collections. Fleet, you can manage your own devices, on-site devices, which aren't super big right now with the pandemic, but are going to come back gradually over the course of the next few years, we imagine. And then we have the STQRY Portal app, which is actually our branded app with institutions, parks, trails, forests, and other tourist sites within it. And then we have STQRY Apps, which is what we'll be discussing a little bit today, and we'll be going over those examples. Our custom apps are more of like something you would download in the Apple and Google Play Store. So I'm sure you guys have seen those. And all of the ones that we'll discuss today, you can kind of play around with and download as well. But again, those are used for audio guides, digital and virtual tours, games, educational tools, and just general site information and ticketing. So I'm going to pass it over to Maka, and she's actually going to discuss the impact on museums in 2020 and kind of how we're going to move forward.
Thank you. I think we can all agree on the idea that 2020 wasn't the best year. And unfortunately, the museum field and the cultural sector was not the exception. The data shows us US museum lost 35% of their usual operating income in 2020. And sadly, they're anticipated losing an additional 28 on their normal operation income in 2021. So while museums are creatively replacing traditional revenues model, digital fundraising, for example, events are falling 34% short compared to traditional in-person activities. So we need to do more, and we know we have the space to do that as well, right? We know that nearly 30% of museums in the United States remain closed due to the pandemic. On that note, we have seen in our clients a higher need to stay in touch with their visitors while closed via digital solution. Basically, they're looking to continue their mission fulfillment, such as education initiatives through our apps. Museums are operating at on average 35% of their capacity, and we know that is unsustainable long term. One possible cause for this is that visitors don't feel safe visiting museums. This is another goal that can be achieved through digital solutions on site. For example, digital platform can limit the touch points and also enhance social distance measures. We have clients that after using our apps have improved their visitation, for example, and noticing that people feel safer and willing to explore the space even further. One last thing that I want to mention is over half of the museums were forced to reduce their staff. And a major reduction took place in education. So, and believe me, when I say that nothing, absolutely nothing can replace real staff members, but a digital platform could act as a supplementary resource and help in filling the gaps, right? So, as you can see, numbers don't look as promising, but not everything is downhill. So hopefully, through this presentation, we can provide you with some ideas of how to confront these challenges in the coming year in a better way.
All right, so kind of like I mentioned earlier, we've been talking to a lot of associations over the course of the year. And now we're again starting to see people kind of say, is a digital solution for us? And what can you do with a digital solution? I mean, we hear myths all the time in terms of digital solutions are only for larger museums. Digital solutions are for people with whole teams to kind of start them up, content teams, marketing teams, pickup rates are low on digital experience. So sometimes we hear people say visitors don't want to download apps and they don't want to use QR codes. Those are so early 2000s. But that's really not true, to be honest. I mean, in terms of bandwidth, budget, even kind of discussing the difficult histories that a lot of people have to share, we also hear that can a digital solution cheapen that difficult history? You know, can it be something that actually takes away from the real story? And again, like Julia said, she studied that for quite a bit of time and found that there was actually an interest in terms of how you can put these difficult histories and sharing important stories together with these digital solutions. So again, these digital hangups, why are these organizations still not investing in digital solutions? These are kind of the ones that we've seen. So we do hope throughout the course of this presentation, we're going to debunk some of these myths for you, and maybe you'll have a better idea of not only how to start a digital experience, but hopefully it won't seem so intimidating, and you'll be able to know that a digital experience isn't just something that can be done at home with kids. It's not just something that can be used as a touring device throughout the museum. It can really be an all-encompassing thing. And we are going to, again, go over clients that we have, just because that's who we can speak to the most. That's who we've talked to every day. We know like the ins and outs of their organization, their background, but we definitely want to make sure that, you know, we're open to discussing other digital experiences if you want to discuss. Matterport, we've seen people do that as well, other devices like that. So feel free to ask any questions in the Q&A later, but just keep these digital hangups in mind. And if, you know, maybe your organization fits into one, maybe you haven't launched something because you're thinking, you know, it's just me who would do it, I don't have the time. Open to a discussion and just kind of discussing what kind of bandwidth or budget you do have, and seeing kind of what you can do with that, because there's always creative solutions that you can kind of come up with to get people engaged in other ways, whether it's an app, whether it's online programming, whether it's a tour guide within the museum.
Sorry. So why to invest, right? There are many reasons why to invest. But I want to talk about the ones I found more relevant to our field. So digital solutions can help organizations reach outside your usual demographic, including different cities or even countries, which is really interesting. So this platform allows visitors that will normally be unable to visit the museum to see what your institution has to offer. For example, educational programs or even your collections. So open all that to many, many people. As I mentioned it before, there have been many layoffs on education departments. So without docents and groups tours currently available, using digital solution as an app allows visitors to go on self-guided tour, including all the information needed to get the full experience. Also keep in mind that you will be offering your visitors a safer experience. Another great point of why to invest is like accessibility. Many people believe that digital technology in museum will take away from the on-site experience, when in reality, it can improve the experience for many communities. Sorry. Also, as an educational tool, it gives people an all-in-one learning tool that it can be used for at home, for example, remote learning, and for example, for virtual school field trips. And actually, with COVID happening, we can have both on-site and off-site offering. Some institutions are also using it as a tool for revenue, as they can charge for digital experience. I'm not saying that you have to, but it's a possibility, and some institutions are doing that as well. And also, if you're after, you know, like organization reopen, hopefully that will happen soon. And then I don't know what's the case for each institution that you guys are part of. A digital solution can also help with social distancing, and also, for example, to help with your queues or improve the experience of your visitors. If you don't mind, thank you. So why we say this is the ultimate educational tool. So the story builder support features that enhance the educational aspect of the app and increase interactivity. So we don't want our visitors, right, just looking their phone. We want them to be engaged with our programming or our tour. So we have a few, I'm going to show a few of them. So for example, we can create a multiple choice quiz to test your visitors' knowledge. And this can be catered to toward different audiences. It can be, for example, for children or for schools or even for families. And you can even create this with a curriculum in mind. We can also help you to put push notifications. So for example, if you have an event or something that you wanted to your visitor to know about it, or any fun facts that is happening at that day at your museum, or just even a friendly hello when you walk through the museum, that's something that you can do with our builder. Something that I found really interesting as a museum person as well is like you can do surveys as well, so you can get an immediately feedback from your visitors about how you're doing, not only about the app, but like if they like the collection or if they're really engaging with your programs. And that's a really nice tools to have. And of course, we support our story builders support any multimedia content, videos or photography. Also, with something that we see that our clients enjoy a lot is using Google Maps or a custom map, because this will allow people basically visualize the building or an exhibition layout, especially when they're using the app remotely, right? So they're able to connect better with the building. And when you use this on site, for tours or such a walking tours, it can be used as an effective navigational tool to see where you are located in relation with your points of interest in the museum. And something that I also find really good is like this limited amount of paper that you're going to be printing, right? So it's like you don't have to print maps or brochures, so it's great for budget and also for the environment. Something that museums that usually have activity with kids tend to use or ask for is budget. So this is something that will add a new layer of entertainment or interaction with your visitors. For example, your visitor can earn budgets through quizzes by completing certain stops or tours. And then this can be used on-site or off-site. So visitor can receive some sort of credit for earning these badges, such as certificate or even a small discount in a gift shop. And actually you can use that in a way to interact with them as well, right? So they can use that, this discount to promote on-site spending. Some of the things that our builder can support is augmented reality. And this is something that absolutely grabbed the attention of your visitors. 360 images as well, and which is a really easy way to create virtual experiences. And the last thing, it's the Matterport video that also help them to, check your museum in a more interactive way.
Okay, so and just to piggyback on that, everything feature-wise we mentioned can be used for remote experiences as well. We did have one client that we won't show today, but they were actually selling their app for kids to use at home and for schools to use for education. And throughout the pandemic, they actually still had admission revenue. It just happened to be digital admission. From what we know, it's still going really well. Kids really enjoyed it. They had some quizzes and fun interactive elements. So that's just another way that you can kind of supplement for that revenue while you're still closed, or even when you're back up and running. If this is something you want to launch for an at-home experience, maybe you can charge people admission who live in a completely different country. So it's kind of, it can be fun in terms of how you kind of create your own experience and you kind of mesh all that content together and how you want to also promote that. So in terms of the future of these digital experiences, so many associations are preparing for what they call is the virtual long game. So like I said, museums are saying, a lot of museums didn't, augment their digital experiences, or maybe they didn't actually launch digital experiences but now they're saying, well, do I still need to? What's the pickup rate going to be? We're not at full capacity yet. And a lot of these associations are saying, okay, if you don't have the skills, like we'll train you and we'll provide you resources so that you can actually look into how to do this. Today, we're just one of those resources. So moving forward, we have to prepare for reopening. Each museum had actually spent on average $27,000, and that figure was as high as $750,000. To us, that's it's hard to see what that was spent on. But if you are putting in social distancing measures, again, one of these things is, can you launch an app or a digital experience like an app that can help you with those social distancing measures? Instead of buying new labels or spacing things out, can people stand back from objects and actually have the label in their hand? And that's really important. And we actually did have a client do that, which I am going to share a little bit later. 40% of museums within this study actually did not identify a date for reopening. That was a big number for me, just because for a museum to not know when they can actually open up their doors and get admission revenue, that's a big one. That's a really big one. And I understand that can put strain on a museum, and there's a lot of museums wondering, how sustainable is how we're essentially moving right now. But what these numbers do show us is, above, Maka had actually said that 35% is what the museums are at capacity wise. What does that tell us? Well, that tells us that people are worried about COVID and they want to be safe and they want to protect their loved ones. So they're not going out to these museums, even though museums are actually seen as safer as an indoor activity instead of a grocery store. So people, when they do start going out again, they want to know, what's the safety measures that are being taken within these organizations? They want to visit places that are going to make them feel safe again. And I really can't blame them, right? So when the people fully reopen, the question is, what digital experiences are you going to have for them to social distance and essentially make them feel a little bit safer? And like I said, we will talk about a client later on, which is going to be that social distancing and kind of how they augmented their app. But this is kind of what we're going to see in the future, is these digital experiences being used for safety. And I am going to pass it on to Julia to debunk some of these digital myths.
Thanks, Genevieve. So we're going to start off talking about accessibility. And accessibility is something that we all strive to be better at. What we have seen here at STQRY, and also supported very creative ways of technology improving accessibility and enhancing the visitor experience, as opposed to diminishing it, which can be a common belief when using technology. So for example, the first case study I want to show you is the Strong Museum of Play. And this app offers self-guided tours in 4 different languages, as well as an interactive custom map as a way for visitors to navigate around the space. But what I really want to highlight is their social story. So for visitors on the autism spectrum or with other social and communication differences, the museum offers social stories of their exhibits. Now, these stories were created with the assistance of Autism Up, which is an organization that provides autism support programs and services in the greater Rochester and surrounding areas. And the museum here does a good job at debunking the myth that technology can take away from the on-site experience, because in this case, technology enhances the on-site experience and accessibility for guests on the autism spectrum and with different learning abilities. Sorry, excuse me. In regards to interactivity for all visitors, there is a photo booth feature. So think like Snapchat or Instagram. The visitor can make it look like they are on the steps of Sesame Street or in Cinderella's pumpkin coach or beside Mario and Pikachu. And these photos automatically save to the user's phone and can later be shared with friends and family and or on social media, which from the museum's perspective, hopefully creates increased visitation and usage of the app. And again, there is a common misconception, especially at sites that are very hands-on or very children-centered, like the Strong Museum of Play, that an app could hinder the visitor experience. However, features like social stories and the photo booth help create a personalized interactive experience that not only makes it more accessible, but also more engaging and memorable. The next set of examples focus on how technology can be used to share important histories and stories. And the first example that I want to share with you is Holocaust Museum Houston. And this is a great example of technology being used to not only address difficult history, but also accessibility. So their app is primarily used for accessibility as it offers audio described tours and ASL tours of its building and exhibitions. So this helps improve the experience for differently abled visitors who otherwise wouldn't have had these supportive options to learn about this history and to experience the building. And one of the main objectives of teaching and interpreting difficult history in general is to try and reach as many people as possible, because I think it's through education that we hope will create a better future and to prevent the past from repeating itself. So instead of technology trivializing difficult history, which some may argue, in this case, it does help make the difficult history more accessible and provides a platform to educate a lot more people. And in a similar way, the New York Historical Society is trying to incorporate as many people as possible by crowdsourcing different experiences. The Hope Wanted exhibition showcases New Yorkers' firsthand experiences with COVID-19. And these stories include images, audio clips, as well as the audio transcripts. The digital exhibition also encourages people to submit their own stories with the possibility of it being published on the app later. So this is creating a digital archive of people's experiences with the situation that is happening in real time. And what I really admire about this is that it challenges the top-down notion of content creation and allows people in the community to contribute to New York's story of COVID-19. And I think this idea can be applied in other apps and platforms by institutions that are looking to incorporate the community in its interpretation and content creation. And the last case study that I want to show you is the National Center for Civil and Human Rights. The app is separated by galleries with audio stops throughout, and each gallery lists not only which exhibitions are placed there, but also accessibility information like restrooms, all gender bathrooms, benches, and water fountains, which is really convenient. And one of the great things about having audio in the app is that it can connect with audiences who may not like to or have difficulty with reading exhibit labels. The spoken word is also typically quite different than written labels and can often be even more engaging. And in some different cases, the audio can even be further separated by age group or having a children's tour and an adult's tour. And like Holocaust Museum Houston, one of the main goals is to educate and inspire people to create a better society. And using such a platform can help make it easier for certain age groups and audiences to understand and learn from the difficult histories that is being told here. There are also buttons throughout the app that allow users to do a number of things, such as contact the center, become a member or volunteer, and also to donate, which is ever more important right now. And when these options are easily accessible through an app that the visitor is enjoying and learning from, it may be even more encouraging for them to donate or become a member, which hopefully not only increases revenue for the site, but also increases audience engagement, visitation, as well as welcomes different types of audiences that otherwise may not have visited the center.
Okay, so like I mentioned that example in terms of what they did in social distancing, this is going to talk about the Ippleton Museum of Art. They actually had their app and they augmented it when COVID happened to be an at-home experience. They had their collection within the app. But this is also kind of going to debunk that myth where, hey, if I have my entire collection in an app that people can use at home, are they going to come on site? Yes, people are definitely going to come on site. I don't think that a Picasso in person is going to be the same on a phone. So this is one of those things where you will see people, kind of question putting their entire collection within an app. And this is one of those instances where it actually did work out for this museum. With their social distancing, though, this was one of the most interesting clients that we had in the beginning of the pandemic. They knew that they were going to reopen a little bit earlier. They're in Florida. And when they reopened, they actually said that they were going to remove pieces of artwork so that people were going to automatically be standing 6 feet apart. And they were going to have all of their labels within the app so that people could stand back and wait their turn to see the label up front, or they could just see it from their phone and they would be able to separate far away from people. However, with those works that they did end up removing within the museum and so people could separate, they are going to put in like a behind the scenes tour. So people can still view those artworks, but within the app, they just won't be able to see them on display. So that's one way to kind of make sure that you're still allowing people to see your whole collection while also maintaining those safety guidelines and social distancing. Another thing they did, and this is a really good one, is They knew that they were going to have timed times for people to go into the gallery. So they actually gave people things to do while they waited. They put on virtual puzzles. They put in like kids games within the apps, family art projects, online crossword puzzles, so that people had something to do while they were waiting for their turn to go into the gallery. And that's just one of those ways that they kind of augmented that to help with those safety guidelines. And then another one I wanted to talk about was the George Eastman Museum. I spoke with them recently, and right when COVID started, they immediately kind of launched this new digital initiative. One of the biggest things I liked about their digital initiative is it actually didn't only add in our app. They had this app for a really long time, but it wasn't necessarily something that was in the forefront of the museum. It wasn't right when people came in, like you scan a QR code, you get the app, you go on your tour. It really wasn't like that. It was more of like, hey, if you're in a group tour and you can't hear, or if you want to explore on your own, here's our app. However, when COVID happened, they did launch an entire digital program online. So they had an app, they actually launched a Matterport video, and they did their new online programming. The great thing about the online programming is that they actually found that they saw a 50% increase in audiences that had never been to the museum. So when I spoke with them, they were like, this is amazing. When we reopen, which they actually already have, we are going to continue with digital programming, and all of their programming is free. And the reason for doing that was they were saying, we're reaching people in other countries, we're reaching people in other cities. We now have unlimited demographics in terms of who we can reach and who we can educate and how we can fulfill our mission. So this is one of those things where once you couple your digital experiences together and you create more of a digital strategy, this is kind of the result. And the great thing about this is you can easily debunk the budget. Not with the Matterport. Matterport's a little bit expensive. I definitely know that one. But what you can debunk is budget, mainly because when they launched their digital initiative, their digital strategy, I was talking to someone and she was like, it was just me. It was me with my camera, taking videos of people, taking photos at home. Everything was free. She got really creative with it. And then the great thing was she did say, once I showed the museum what I could do, they decided to give me a little bit of a budget to launch my digital initiative a little bit further. But to start it, to really get that basics of reaching out to people who couldn't come to the museum, she did that no budget, all on her own, just with a camera, with a phone, and then they were able to obviously upgrade materials. Again, with this museum, they actually did reopen. They are higher than 35% capacity. So when they are open, they have their social distancing and their guidelines. Their app is now totally in the forefront. They're a completely touchless museum, which is great. People feel safe enough that they are almost at their full capacity in terms of who's entering the galleries. It is a pretty decent sized building, so they can have people separate out. They have no docents right now, which is why they're relying mainly on their app as their digital experience. But I wanted to share this one mainly because, again, it's kind of debunking that myth of I don't have the bandwidth and I don't have the budget. There are things you can do, whether it's an app or whether it's a camera, videoing curators, asking a curator, hey, what's your favorite painting? What's your favorite piece? And just putting that online. That is digital, that is interactive. People can view that and you can still fulfill your missions to educate. So moving forward, we are going to start answering some questions. So feel free to just kind of ask away and we will do our best to answer any and all.
At this time, if anybody would like to unmute their phones and ask questions, feel free to do so. Genevieve, if you don't mind, thank you. That was my next thing. Please go share your screen. Normally we don't open the floor, but today we will. So please feel free, everyone, to unmute and ask whatever's on your mind.
I have a question.
Sure. Hi, Francis. How are you?
Hello. Yes, I'm the Vice President of the Yoakum African American History Association, and Sandra K. Yoakum is our president, and both of us are co-founders. And we are interested in launching a digital museum, and we're wondering from the startup, how much would it cost for us to do so?
Is that in terms of creating the museum or just launching a digital experience within the museum?
We have no museum. We wish to do something entirely new, create a digital exhibition, so to speak.
Oh, okay.
Not quite a museum, but it would be an exhibition of all of the work that we have done, all of the documents that we have found, and the photos. We have a book, we have a video, we have a website with lots of lesson plans and PowerPoints, and we want to have the community at large to be able to see our materials in a visual, digital way that's different from just a static website.
Okay, yeah. So there is like a few ways that we've seen people do things. Obviously, I lean toward like it would still be a collections website, but it wouldn't be a static website because a lot of the collection software, you can actually, certain collection software, Story being one of them, you can actually comment on photos, you can interact with other users. And that's a big one because like you said, it's not a static website. It's kind of more of like a social website for people to interact with the content. But if you are looking for other options, again, like an app is always a great one to start with because you can have all of your stuff all in one place. And with an app, you can also do a web app. So you would also have that website aspect as well. So you would do a website and you would essentially have this app that people can download and view your virtual museum, which I love the idea of a virtual museum, by the way. I think that's really cool. So it's more so about like now you have those interaction aspects of how do we get people to interact with this content? And that would also kind of be on that marketing side of things. But that's kind of what I would suggest is if you have a lot of materials, more of that collections website. But if you're looking to have just more of a virtual exhibition, you could easily do that with an app as well that people can have just in their hand or on the website.
And Genevieve, you guys' apps also link to your social media, right, for members. So Francis, if you guys, what I would really suggest if you don't already have it, make sure that you at least snag all of the social media platforms with your organization's name as soon as possible, because there are people who will go out there and say, oh, well, I want to claim this, and then you won't be able to have it. But then what you'll be able to do is start linking the Story app to your social media as well as your website. And then as Genevieve said, then you'll also have the web app, which is what we use during conference. So you know, everybody was just, clicking on our website. And those price to bottom line it to price, because that's what you asked, they vary based on what you need. So Genevieve has her contact information. She could put it in the chat. And then from there, whatever questions you have as far as packages, you can have that conversation with her.
Yes. And what I will say for everyone, if you have a certain budget, and we have our pricing online, but if you do have a certain budget, or we're very passionate about telling stories that are inspiring and amazing and truthful and really well-rounded, if you have a good story and you're like, hey, this is my budget, we're flexible, come to us and have a conversation. And we're always willing to just kind of discuss options. But again, like in terms of organizations, we work with really large organizations, or we work with, a tiny museum that's one person. So don't let budget be that deterrent again either.
Thank you. Angel, your hand's up? Well, your virtual hand's up because you don't have your face on. I was going to pick on you.
My Wi-Fi doesn't allow my video for me to speak, but the next meeting you will see.
Sure. Okay.
Thank you for your presentation. I want to know if you can speak more about timeline as far as what the project schedule looks like from development, design to app launch. Yeah,
so we have really, superhuman people like Fidette, who I think launched her app in a day. And then we do have some people who take a year sometimes. But honestly, the average, I would actually say, if you have certain content you already want to put in, 3 months sometimes.
Okay.
Again, if you have app ready content, that could also be a month if you're like fully ready. So the only thing that can kind of have a holdup is just your Apple and Google Play developer accounts. That's really it. But other than that, if you have the content and you have the time to just kind of input that too, if you have a little bit of budget, we also have our team members who can also input content into the app and design it for you. So again, it's kind of like we're a one-stop shop. So if you do have app ready content, definitely let us know, because there's things that we can do. But yeah, I would say a month to 3 months if you have content. If you need to create content, I would say maybe 6 to 7.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks, Angel. Anyone else? Sorry, it's snack time. So if you heard like a bag of chips, it was my son grabbing chips. So that's why I have this beautiful virtual background, so that you guys don't see him running around in his Sonic costume trying to get chips and things.
Sorry, Vedette, I have another question.
Oh, yes, Angel.
Have you partnered with any National Park Service sites? I know you mentioned Park Service sites and trails, but I wanted to know if you had any Park Service sites. I'm at the National Park Foundation, and we support cultural resource sites at the National Park Service.
Yes. So national park sites, I think we have about 70 or 80 national parks with us currently. And then we actually do work with the entire U.S. Forest Service. So parks and forests is also very easily within our realm in terms of accessibility and interpretation, and also mapping and those interactive mapping elements. So yes, we do have roughly.
Okay. Do you know of any sites offhand, or if I can find a list of those sites?
I can get you a list. So if you email me, I can actually have someone pull a few for you, and they can actually send you examples of those apps if you would like.
Perfect. Thank you. That would be great.
Yeah, no problem. We can send those today.
Yeah, Angel, I feel that what STQRY has would really work well with the African American Experience Fund that you guys are that you guys are working on, as well as everything that you guys are doing in Park Service, with some of the driving tours that you're doing, and things of that nature. I feel like just being able to have this app as a companion, and that's not just for Park Service. I feel like this works for all of our museums, like everybody who's on this call. And you guys would be happy to know that we're now at 915 members. So those 915 members, look, yay! Those 915 members, I feel like this app is really going to enhance what you already have, especially since folks are temporarily closed, or if you're permanently closed just for a little bit, or if you're getting off the ground like Francis and Robert, who don't really have a physical space, or just working things out. And I don't really want to take up too much time. So Teresa, I'm sorry, I'll call on you for your question.
Hi, thank you. I do work for the Park Service, and I'm not speaking on behalf of the Park Service or my park site. But could you send me, Genevieve, could you also send me a list of those parks that you were going to send? I think that a lot of us are struggling, not just the Park Service and museum wide. A lot of us are struggling right now, or have been struggling, trying to switch over to the virtual experiences, because a lot of us are closed. My site's been closed for over a year now. So I'd appreciate that. That way I can get with other parks and find out how they're going about doing this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Genevieve, if you can share the list with me, I'll just make sure that everyone has that. Because it'll just be easier. And then I'll also introduce you to Teresa, and I'll put your information when we share the recording. Do you want it to be you, or do you want it to be your main inbox?
It can be me. What I will say is that Josh, is our director of customer experience, we can give you the NPS app, which actually has all the NPS sites in there, but we can't give you the actual, you can't print out like an Excel spreadsheet. But we can give you the app. Within that app, you'll actually also be able to see not only who actually has an app, but you'll be able to see their experiences and what they do and how they use it, which I think Teresa would help you in essentially what you were saying, how to move over to that virtual side of things.
Absolutely. And Teresa, I do have a question. Right now, there's a federal mandate that you guys, for the most part, cannot go inside of your site. How much content do you have access to, or even through the federal mandate, can you still go to your park and grab these items for the digital content?
Oh, absolutely. We're trying to do everything like videos to put on Facebook, and we have access to our sites right now. We're allowed to go in there, you know, as long as it's only one or two of us at a time. We can do videos in there. We can do, you know, like reading with a ranger, that kind of stuff. I'm looking at going out and doing some videos at the different sites that are associated with our trail. And those will be going on Facebook. I think one of the difficulties that we're having is the 508 compliance, because it's absolute with the federal government. And looking at what you just showed in the presentation, it looks like that stuff is done for you.
We are 508 compliance,
So that would be awesome.
Yeah. So we are 508 compliant. You know, we match all those, you know, accessibility guidelines. We have, let's see, we have, like we said, like we have those ASL and audio described tours, as well as in terms of also like those image descriptions, all of that stuff. That's all pretty much built into the builder, and these apps are made for accessibility, as well as other things. But yeah, we made these with accessibility in mind for sure.
I think Teresa may have dropped off, but I do want to say, for any of you who are in like a historical neighborhood, or if your museum or if a partner organization is on the National Register of Historic Places, I feel that this app will be just another tool in your toolbox, because you can do an African American walking tour, or for Robert, Chickasaw walking tour with the app, and just, you know, connect it to your museum. One thing that I think Teresa did drop off. One thing that Teresa's site did for Summerton Montgomery, and they're also the Tuskegee Airmen site, they had a virtual tour through Zoom for Gersell Academy in Maryland, and it was a great thing, and we recorded it and all of that. But on top of that, that piece can be embedded, because now it's a YouTube link. That piece can be embedded on your web app part of the app. Or Genevieve, if you guys have like a video section of the app. This app, I love it, because there's so many components that you can kind of like just throw into it. And what you want to do, not really, but what you want to do is try to break it so that you can just upload whatever you want, and then just have the story team try to figure out how to put all of the pieces back together for you to make it really, really great. But they want that type of feedback. Like, you know, I wasn't able to upload this video. How can I go about doing that? And then they have a workaround for you. So just know that this is Virginia. I'll stop talking because now I see your hand.
All right. Hi.
Hi.
Let me lower my hand. I represent a historical society out here in San Francisco. We do have a gallery, and we do exhibits on occasion. Right now, we've been closed for over 12 months. The city and our landlord will not allow us into the building. So I'm rather concerned about all of the artifacts that we have in the building and elsewhere. And I'm kind of the chief archivist, amateur archivist. But in relation to these applications, we're very interested in mounting some virtual exhibits of some of the materials we actually have on hand, or that we can get our hands on between now and the end of the year, is when we think they're going to let us. We're going to be closed again for the remainder of this year. I'm worried about cost, technical specifications. Currently, we have a website that's hosted on a GoDaddy type platform. The maintenance that's required, and none of these things are within my. I'm a public health person. I'm one of the people that learned. I submitted many of my papers in high school with handwriting and typed things in college, and I'm just barely computer and internet literate. So this seems really something that we want to do, but kind of, it's just so overwhelming to even make a decision about how do you do it. And then we do have a wonderful walking tour of San Francisco, the African American presence in the 19th century. And it's over 40 years old. We would like to get that as part of a virtual exhibit. We also are planning on creating a walking tour of the 20th century, which is really even more exciting because many of the places are still there. So this seems like it would fit really nicely. Then my last question is cost. How do you pay for this kind of thing? We have a very small budget.
Yeah.
I'll stop there.
Yeah, no, and this is great because this is perfect because these are all the questions that we get, year round. And so I guess like one at a time, the one thing is those technical specifications, right? Yeah, people come to us all the time and say, yeah, I can hardly use my own email. How am I supposed to actually create an app? And so our actual support team is available 24/7. So if you are waking up early in the morning at 6 o'clock and you are creating your virtual experience and you don't know how to do something, you can message us, you can web chat us, and someone will help you in 45 seconds. If you're awake at 2 a.m. and all of a sudden you just have an urge to start uploading photos, that's okay too, because someone's awake. So in terms of technical specifications, our builder is DIY, but it's also made where you just kind of drag and drop and you upload content, and it actually has like certain layouts that are already there. So no really design needed, except if you know your colors and your logo, you're pretty much good to go on the design. In terms of those content aspects, again, it's really drag and drop, but if you ever have any difficulties, that's kind of where our team steps in. And we do have services where our team can upload things for people, no problem. And kind of like Vidette said, like she just kind of puts it all in there and then calls Josh up and is like, Josh, I need help. And Josh is like, I got it. Let's go. We got this. It's okay. So really no technical specifications needed. And we like to get that across because, like I said, these digital and virtual experiences are incredibly daunting to people who don't know about them. Really daunting. How do I start? How do I begin? And it just is that way. But again, you really don't need anything. We did actually work with a library, the St. Louis Public Library down in, and the one thing that they actually said was they had no technical specifications at all. They had no technical skills. This is also one of the reasons that we're seeing a lot of museums not create digital experiences and just kind of like wait for COVID to be over, because a lot of things we're getting is we don't have these skill sets. And that's okay, because there is a lot of options where you don't need these skill sets, essentially. STQRY really being one of them. Like I mentioned, the library came to us and they said, we don't know anything. We don't know how to launch this, but this is what we're looking at. This is what we want to do. And now they have a full digital experience. They use it instead of their docents, and people can kind of just explore the library on their own because it's architecturally amazing. So now they have that. So technical specifications, totally good on that. Budget-wise, if you do go on our website, we do have our local and specialty pricing, which you won't see a price for that, but you will see the standard app pricing, which is roughly that $2,000 a year. And then you do see that pro pricing, which is roughly $4,000, and then you see that enterprise pricing. The one thing we say about that is you'd be more, like you said, on that local and specialty side, you would actually be the smaller budget. We're a small organization. That's kind of where you would look. You would talk to us for that, but that can run at just a really small monthly fee with even no setup cost, depending on your flexibility. again. So that's kind of where that budget comes in. If you have 2,000 a year, you can easily kind of launch an experience like this.
Genevieve,
Okay.
I just want to add something. I'm repeating what you're saying, but I do want to stress that, like, you know, we don't throw people into the deep end and say, go figure out how to make an app, right? Like, so everyone gets a dedicated customer success manager, and they train you on the builder, right? It's not like you just go figure it out and then you only come to us with questions. So we really try to hold your hand throughout that process, train you on it, and you have like full access, like Genevieve said, to make any content changes, which people love, but they also love that they're not thrown into the deep end and that we give you support on that.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, the dedicated client manager. I forgot that. That's
no, you said it. I'm repeating what you're saying, but it's important to stress because some people don't know, right?
Wrong person to talk to every day. If you talk to them every day.
But it's a question, right? People always ask that. They're like, well, I'm not tech savvy. Like, are you going to help me? Like, are you like really? They ask, are you going to help me? And I'm like, well, yeah, of course. And then it's something that we really want to stress is that we don't throw you into the deep end.
Yeah, and that walking tour that you mentioned, that's a really big one in terms of your compatibility with us, because what we didn't share in this one is our interactive mapping. You can actually set up geo alerts. So on this trail, if people are walking by something that you want to alert their attention, it will alert them in the app and it will give them basically this geo alert that tells them, oh, you'll see this on your right or you'll see this on your left. And it can point them in the right directions. So between basically what you're telling me with the virtual exhibits and then the walking tour, it sounds like an app like this would be the way to go, because you can also separate that out. You can have a collection and then you can have the mapping and the tour. And it's really good to kind of segment those experiences. Yeah.
And Virginia, for everyone, the app is very plug and play. So don't be like intimidated by it. Once Josh gets you set up, or whomever's on the other side, you can just say, well, I want this. I mean, it's really plug and play. Like, the reason why we were able to do it so quickly right before conference is because I was just like, oh, we have to get this content up and this, and this. And it was just, oh, drop the link right here and it populated, drop this over there and it populated. So it's really nice. And I'm so happy to hear about all of your walking. Robert knows I get excited about walking tours, although I don't like outside during the summer months because of the bugs, and you know, the cicadas are coming back this year. So there's a lot of stuff that Vedette won't do this year, including in-person conference, because obviously we have to be safe. But I want everyone to know that I appreciate you today. I appreciate you coming. I know that we are exactly at 3 o'clock, so if there's at least one more question, I can open up the floor for that. But if not, I would like to thank Maka and Genevieve and Julia for their time today, and for each one of you for just joining us today and having such great questions. It always makes this conversation so much better. And when we can meet in person, I am going to probably continue to do air hugs, but I will hug you because I miss you guys all so much. Are there any other questions?
Yes, I have one question, please.
Sure.
This is
I'm sorry.
This is Melanie
hi.
with the RAM. Hello, how are you?
How are you? I'm doing well,
Wonderful, wonderful. My question is, alongside of virtual apps, I'm really interested in how we can add multilingual apps to it, so that we can at least express and be able to share it with persons, and specifically Spanish speaking, or if we want to reach out to maybe one or two other,
Yeah, absolutely. And Julia, you can also elaborate on this as well, but our platform is multilingual. It supports pretty much all languages. So essentially, if you have the content, you would have that content translated, and then you would just input it in the builder, and they would just take different tour paths. So when someone pulls up the app, you would have, like, let's say English and Spanish, and they would hit, Spanish, and then they go into the Spanish app. So it actually would take them into another side of the app that's the same content as the English, but is just kind of like a mirrored view in another language.
Okay. So we would have to submit our content to you in order to obtain that app, or?
Nope, that's the great thing. So you can actually,
Awesome.
like we said, drag and drop your content for different languages
Perfect.
in the builder. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, very, and we do have, and if you want to email me, we can also send you some apps that are multilingual, so you can kind of see how those tour paths work. And it's
Perfect.
a little helpful to see that probably.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
I will. I'll send you all email. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Melanie. And yes, she will be sending it. Melanie doesn't play. Actually, nobody on this Hollywood Squares play around with their inquiries. But thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. As I just said a little while ago, if you have any questions, please feel free. Like, if you were shy, which I don't think any of you guys are, but if you were a little shy or something comes to your mind in a little bit, please feel free to send your inquiries to us. Just please make sure that you do it before 5 p.m. today so that we can get them over to the STQRY team. And then from there, we'll go ahead and make sure that everyone has the recording. But again, thank you. Please enjoy your weekend. I appreciate each one of you, and I miss you. And
I thought it was a perfect.
have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you for joining, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
No
Thank
problem.
you.
No problem. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.